Hi everyone, how's everyone doing here today? Thank you for watching and Happy New Year! Here we are in early January. Things are off to a good, but still there's a lot of things to do, sort of start. And in this particular video, I wanted to talk about a few things, specifically the Holocaust Museum and some of the parallels that we see today. For those following my social media, you'll notice I did post a whole series of photos from the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., which I had the opportunity to go out and see. And without spoiling it for those who haven't been there yet, and if you haven't, I do recommend checking it out if you ever get the chance. It's unlike any museum I've ever been to, and it's a pretty emotional experience given the history. There's a lot of imageries you see, and I know a little bit about the history already. I'm not a historian, but, you know, obviously I've seen other documentaries like from Ken Burns, and this goes more in depth into the rise of Hitler, his propaganda, and some of the things that went on, little at a time, how it eventually escalated, and how sadly other countries, including the United States, didn't originally get involved for different reasons. Some of it was political. Some people were trying to avoid the war. Some didn't think it was all that bad, or they weren't aware of it and they just kind of, de-escalated the whole situation. Well, only until things took a huge impact that the reality set in, not just with the United States, but with other countries, seeing how Germany was invading its surrounding countries, how Hitler was rising into power, more importantly, some of the hatred he was spreading, to say nothing about the final solution, where we would find in horrific fashion just how bad things got and the true depth of human depravity that was back then, prior to all that, probably considered unimaginable. No one could think that, human beings could stoop to such a level, but sadly it did. So, again, I don't want to go too much into detail on the museum itself. Like I said, I recommend checking it out if you haven't done so, and, what you take away from it is you. I'd be curious to hear about it if you've already been there. The one thing I found shocking about the whole rise of fascism, as spearheaded by Adolf Hitler, was some of the parallels that we're seeing today. And I know I talked about this in some other previous videos, seeing everything, the photographs, the descriptions, and some of the videos, some of the propaganda in the museum, there are some similarities of what we are seeing today, unfortunately. And I know I may be coming off like a broken record. The reason for that is there are still some people out there who choose not to see it. Now, I'm not just talking about the MAGA crowd. I mean, let's face it, they are completely brainwashed. So if you're watching this video, I don't even know why. I would just stop to save yourselves the time, because nothing I say is going to convince you, because you are wholly devoted to a fascist leader, somebody who wants to rule the country like an authoritarian. For the independent voters, new voters who have recently become registered, and some who are a little on the fence, given some recent things that have been going on within our own current events, both domestically and internationally. Let's break down some of the things, which I've already talked about. I'll reiterate. Book banning. That was a big thing Hitler did. He burned a variety of books, not just ones written by Jews, but also some American authors, like Jack London, Ernest Hemingway, to name a few. I've read some of their books. I don't see any problem with it, but Hitler obviously did. Nothing has ever come out of book banning. Nothing good, I should say. Okay? Historically, it has always been an indication of something bad going on. In this case, it's just fascism, trying to erase certain African-American history and also target marginalized groups like LGBTQs and members of the trans community and so on. We're seeing a lot of similar propaganda that's being used, echoed, from Adolf Hitler himself. Namely, Donald Trump, using things like how he speaks out against migrants, like poisoning the blood of our nation. I don't know the exact wording, but along those lines. Did Donald Trump read Mein Kampf? Some have made that speculation. I don't know. Personally, Donald Trump doesn't like to read, from what we've seen. He's a very poor reader. As you could tell, how you can easily see I was talking from a teleprompter. But those words, somebody prepared them for him. And maybe he didn't know up front when he said them, but he certainly knows now, and he doesn't care. And the fact that you got how he says how he wants to be a dictator just on day one, which we know is a lie, he's going to do way more than day one, is shocking. Also so that you've got his base supporters that listen to that and just cheer it on. That on Fox, when you talk about, poisoning the blood of our nation, they just kind of brushed it off, okay? Another thing that Donald Trump does is making an enemy out of the media, calling it the enemy of the state, which is also similar rhetoric that Hitler used. You think this is all just some bizarre coincidence? You think deep down he doesn't know what he's doing? Donald Trump is not intelligent, but he is a grifter, and as a grifter, he knows how to sell. And he is smart enough to read the audience so that when there are certain things he says that doesn't click with the audience, like when he talked about vaccinations and they actually started booing him, he dropped it all. Now he's onto this whole, regurgitating some of the thoughts and ideas of Adolf Hitler, and they seem to go for it. So he's going to continue on with it. And just like any authoritarian, they don't care about the people. Oh, Hitler wanted Germany to keep himself in power and everything. But once he started getting defeated, he didn't surrender. He committed suicide, like the coward that he was. Will it go on to escalate in like a full-scale civil war? No, I don't see that. But that's the thing about Hitler you also have to realize, which I've talked about. He got himself to power by voting in, okay? It's not like he started a militant all on his own and took over Germany by force. Eventually he did, turning against the Jews and other groups of people that he didn't like, certain people of color, gypsies, and above all, homosexuals. They didn't use the term LGBTQ back then. And if there were trans back then, I frankly don't see them, being acceptable to a person like Hitler. But that's what Donald Trump does. He's already shown that he is more than happy to strip away the rights from the American people. He is looking to take away other things from the working class, like Social Security, like Medicare. Again, all things that you hear about all the time. They're saying it out loud. It's not like it's some quiet part. They're pretty much saying, without using this exact wording, but we want to be fascists. We want to rule America like Trump wants to rule America like his own little private dictator. And pretty much gut everything. Replace it all with cronies, Trump loyalists, especially those that are familiar with the legal ways within Congress, so he can pretty much do whatever he wants with little or no resistance or pushback. Do away with certain types of media that he doesn't find acceptable. Pretty soon it would just be Fox, OAN, Newsmax, all sitting there helping spread his propaganda of hate. The things he says, poisoning of the blood, that is just absolute racist. It is as xenophobic as can be. So again, one of the mistakes history made was, like I said, not getting involved sooner. Not just the United States, but those that would ally with them, like England and Russia. Start looking at the warning signs. Maybe they didn't know about the concentration camps right away. They eventually found out about them. But it just goes to show what goes on beneath the surface. And you hear about all the stuff that Trump's saying here and now. Imagine what he's saying behind closed doors. Doing what he can to try and influence things. We know he doesn't respect law and order. We know he doesn't respect elections, other than just to get himself elected and back in office. And that's also a means for him to avoid his legal woes. So we, the voters, not the MAGA base, the ones who actually think, who see past all the BS, who recognize the corruption, we have a choice to make. Do we just sit idle and do nothing? Because there are some people who are talking about that. Not so much because of Trump, but because they have certain doubts about Biden. I get the doubts. I get some of the issues, especially with what's going on in Israel, with Gaza. And guess what? Get past it. Really. Why? Because as I said in my previous video, you got to look at the big picture. When you start seeing the parallels, when you see history repeat itself, you can either repeat those mistakes or you can take action and do something about it. Okay? You can put an end to the fascism. You can do away with this whole MAGA thing. Because with Donald Trump out of office in 2024, when he loses to Joe Biden, Is he going to fully disappear? No, he's going to keep doing what he can to whine on right-wing propaganda. He'll say again, oh, the election was stolen, they stole it from me twice. He'll again try and gaslight people and use stochastic terrorism to get them to do things. He knows how to trigger these people, and sadly some of these people are foolish enough to get triggered and go out and break the law on his behalf. But the one key difference then, after he loses in 2024, is he won't have the power of the presidency to back him up. He won't have the military on his side. Joe Biden will. And you can bet he's going to take steps. Not that he wants to go to war, not that he wants to hurt American people, but he wants to make sure that anyone who tries anything will be stopped. Hopefully without having to resort to bloodshed. But if there are people that try and storm the Capitol again, arrest them on the spot and charge them to the max. Send a message saying, we don't want fascism in our country. We want democracy. You have that choice. Talking to the new voters, the independent voters, and those that, had the courage to go out and vote in 2020. Some of them under difficult circumstances, waiting long periods in line. But guess what? Whether you vote for Joe Biden because you believe in him, because in spite of some of the recent doubts you might have, he has a lot of accomplishments. Things like the infrastructure bill, the CHIPS Act, expanding healthcare, just to name a few. Focus on the good things. And if in your mind you're just saying to yourself, well, I don't want to see Donald Trump get reelected, so I'm going to vote for Joe Biden, that's fine. I don't care about the why, just as long as you make the right decision. Because again, we have a choice. We're starting to see history repeat itself. Make no mistake about that. We're seeing the fascism. We're seeing some of the corruption that's going on. We're seeing just what MAGA stands for. Just a bunch of people whining and catering to an authoritarian, a fascist leader who doesn't care about the American people and will pretty much do everything he can to keep himself in power and insulate himself once he gets there. Okay? It's up to us, the voters, to stop that from happening. And we can do that. We need to work together. Get ready to get out and vote in 24. I know it's, less than a year away and we still got several months, but that's several messaging that we got to constantly get out and repeat and put out there. Get registered to vote if you haven't done so. Get prepared to vote. And if you want to even do some of the things that I've talked about before, which I'm doing now, like get more involved in some volunteer work you can do. Canvassing, sending messages out to get people to vote, phone banking, writing postcards, and above all, just making donations. Do what we can to keep the MAGA out of Congress as much as possible. There are some members out there who are now vulnerable, who, when the times come to re-elect them, we can get them out. But we got to work to do that. Yes, there'll always be the MAGA base right there to support them to the end. That's fine. They made their choice. If they want to live in a dictatorship or live in like what it's like to be in a fascist nation, you know what I say? Take a vacation for North Korea or Russia. Talk to the people there. Ask them what it's like to really live under a dictatorship. And you're going to find they're not going to paint a pretty picture for you. But again, some of them are just so far brainwashed down the hole, so delusional to think that Donald Trump is going to solve all their problems, which he's not going to do anything of the sort. And we're seeing the proof of that right now, but they don't want to see the proof. So that's where we have to step up. So make the decision, make the commitment to vote in 2024 no matter what, and vote blue no matter who. If it's not Biden and if it's another Democratic candidate, fine, go for that. If you can vote against Trump during the primaries, if you're a Republican who's considered a rhino because you're not swept up in the cold, do that. Do whatever you can to keep Trump off the ballot. Hope for the other courts. That might get reverted in the Supreme Court, like what Colorado and Maine did, and that's beyond us. That's within the courts. But as far as voting and volunteering and donating, that is within our jurisdiction. Let's do that. Let's make the decision to vote this fascism out. Because the one thing you don't want to do is see history repeat itself. Maybe it may not go to the extreme of seeing concentration camps, but he has talked about setting up internment camps for the homeless, not with the intention of doing any good, say nothing about mass deportations, and to say nothing about limiting voting rights, and also doing things to attack the LGBTQ and the trans community, as well as women's rights. You think he wouldn't take away a woman's right to choose? Think again. That's why you got stupid groups like the Moms for Liberty. That quote from Adolf Hitler. Donald Trump is quoting words from Adolf Hitler. That should be a deal breaker right there. But to the MAGA base, it's not. So again, we step up to the plate. We vote the fascism out. We send a message that we still believe in patriotism and our democracy, and there is nothing that Donald Trump is doing that is patriotic. Xenophobia, racism, trying to suppress votes, lying about elections, and above all, insurrection, that is not the actions of a patriot. In fact, it's about as un-American as can be. And we as Americans have to unite against this threat. So, make that commitment, please, because in the end, it's up to you. It is always up to you. Thank you for watching. I really hope you understand. And like I said, if you get a chance, if you haven't seen the Holocaust Museum, see it for yourself. Make that effort, because believe me, when you come out there, it is definitely an eye-opening experience. So, thank you for watching.